Alright guys, so I have reviewed Alien Romulus and I have done my full spoiler talk on the movie, so the only thing that there is left to do is try to figure out where it fits in my ranking of the entire Alien franchise. And this was a hard one, man. This was a hard one to figure out because when it comes to ranking lists, it all depends on the reasons as to why you like the movies. This is not an objective list. This is just personal preference. And, I like a lot of the Alien films for various different reasons. Some I like because they're just silly and ridiculous. Some I like because it's a strong atmospheric horror film that puts me into the right kind of mood. Some I like for the action. So it really depends. And Alien Romulus was a bit of a mixed bag for me. There was a lot I loved about the movie, but also a lot that just I didn't really care for. So it's kind of a difficult one to figure out where I want to put it. I think I figured it out, and we're going to rank all the Alien films. Obviously, before I begin, this is just my list based upon my opinions and my personal preferences, and I'm sure this list will anger some people as people are very passionate about the Alien films. I'm passionate about it as well, but I can understand everyone's list being a little bit different. Obviously, mine is not going to look like yours, so go ahead and put your list or your ranking of the Alien franchise down below in the comments as well. But this is just going to be my list based on personal preference. This is not based on objectivity of what I think is the best made movie, just my favorite Alien films in order. And I'm also going to include the Alien vs. Predator films on the list because, why not? They're technically Alien films, even though they're in a separate continuity, but whatever, let's include them just for more fun, just for more movies to talk about. And with that, let's start at the very, very bottom. Number 9 on the list is probably going to be the bottom of most people's, which is Alien vs. Predator Requiem. There are some aspects of this movie that I appreciate. I liked that they went more R-rated with it. I like that it's the first Alien movie to take place on planet Earth, or at least, in this small kind of suburban town setting. But it very much turns out like a just generic, cheesy slasher horror movie. It doesn't really feel like an Alien film. It doesn't really feel like a Predator film. And of course, the biggest problem that most people have with it, myself included, is that the movie is so goddamn dark, you can't tell what's going on. When you want to watch a movie that's Alien versus Predator, I'd imagine that you want to see the alien versus the predator, right? And a lot of the sequences in this movie and the action scenes are just so horribly choreographed. The camera is way too up close. You can't tell what's going on. It's too dark to see anything. And it ruins the prime aspect of what you want to see in these movies. As well as out of all of these films, in Alien vs. Predator or the traditional Alien timeline, these are the worst human characters that you could possibly come up with. They are just generic, forgettable, disposable, the worst of the worst of slasher characters. And I love myself some slashers, but of all the slasher films I've seen, I would say the Alien vs. Predator characters are some of the worst. Some, maybe not the worst, but some of the worst slasher characters I've ever seen. Some ideas are kind of cool, like the Pred Alien creature, but I feel like even with that, they don't do too many interesting things with it. Instead, they just go for pure gross out factors instead of like trying to find something unique to say with it or unique to do with it. Ultimately, this movie just falls flat, which is a big disappointment, but yeah, definitely the worst film to feature the Xenomorph. Now, already immediately, we're going to get controversial because my number 8 pick is going to be Alien 3. I know there are a ton of people out there that love Alien 3 or love the assembly cut or find some value in it, but for me, Alien 3 just falls flat on almost every level except for 2 things. The only 2 things I like about it are having the Xenomorph be birthed from a creature that is not a human and taking on the attributes of that creature. I thought that was a unique idea, and I also like Ripley sacrificing herself so that the company doesn't get their hands on the Xenomorph, kind of ending her arc. And one thing that's really cool about the Alien series just in general is that there's never been a remake or a reboot of it, and they've never really contradicted Ripley's ending. Like there's a clone in Alien Resurrection, but it's a clone. It's not like they brought the original Ripley back. So I kind of like that Ripley's storyline does actually conclude, like with that initial trilogy, and they've never kind of contradicted that. But ultimately, I do find Alien 3 to be what it is, and it's just an absolute mess of a movie. Even David Fincher, who directed it, there was so much studio interference and so much contradiction, and he never got to fully, I guess, make the movie that he wanted to make. He's basically disavowed the movie. He's the only director that's never done a commentary track on their Alien film or been involved with any any of the bonus features or bonus content, documentaries talking about the movie. He wants nothing to do with it. People will say you don't like Alien 3 because of the bleak tone. It's not the tone for me. I just find the movie to be incredibly boring. Other than a few standout sequences, it feels like the mess that it is. It feels incoherent to me. It feels like a slog. It feels like you're just waiting to get to a better sequence in the movie. The special effects themselves with the, the puppet filmed on the blue screen and then put into the film, I think it looks absolutely horrendous. I don't enjoy looking at it whatsoever. I also don't think the film is that scary. So if you're going for more of the bleak kind of horror tone, I don't think it really lands for me, as well as I don't think the action sequences are very good. I mean, I guess it's cool that they are, we're trying to be creative about the fact that there's no weapons on this planet and they're trying to lure the alien into particular traps and stuff. They got to be a little bit more intelligent with how they handle it. They can't just go after it with guns. So there's like elements in there that I think are cool, but it's one of those moments where I think the ideas are better than the execution. And for me, the execution of Alien 3 just doesn't work very well. Obviously, there is killing off of Hicks and Newt in the very beginning. And one thing that I can't stand in movies is killing main characters off screen in between movies. Like, if you're going to kill them, I'm okay with that. You can kill them in the movie. But one thing I just can't stand is when they kill characters in between movies. And another Alien movie on this list does that same crime, and I just can't stand that. I can't stand when you do that. You take all of the emotion and build up and character development, and you just rip it away without any kind of catharsis, without any kind of investment on the audience's part. It's just like, hey, we're gonna get rid of this character. Too bad, so sad. I don't know, I just hate when movies do that in general, and I've just never been a fan of Alien 3. Every time I watch it, I try to like it more, and I try to see what other people see in it, and I respect people that love it and that like it, and I understand the reasons why. But for me, every time I watch it, I'm just not invested. I just don't care. It just is a boring movie to me. I'm just not a fan of it, other than a few ideas and themes that are in it. But for the execution in itself, I'm not a fan of it. So it is going to be number 8 on my list. My number 7 pick is going to be Alien vs. Predator, the first one of those two films. I think this movie is okay as just like a generic, enjoyable monster movie watch. Like, it doesn't do anything too interesting or crazy, but at the same time, it's called Alien vs. Predator, and you get Alien vs. Predator, and you get to see it in its full glory. The movie is lit in a way where you can actually see the monsters fighting one another, which is cool, and it does involve the alien queen, which is rare, actually. It's interesting that there's 9 movies to feature the xenomorph and the alien, and only 3 of them have a queen, but only 2 of them really utilize the queen, and this is one of the 2. So, if you want the alien queen involved in the film, well, this is really the only other movie besides Aliens that gives that to you. I think that it has some fun moments. I think some of the action and choreography is interesting to watch. I don't think it's a great movie. I don't think the characters are great. I do think the main character is a little bit too perfect at everything that she does. But at the same time, I find this movie tolerable. Like, I find it fine to watch. Like, I don't mind watching it. You know what I mean? Like, it's okay. It's decent. It's not great, but it's fine. At number 6, I'm going to put Alien Resurrection. And I know that a lot of people hate this movie. And once again, I understand. I understand why people do. But I'll say 2 things about Alien Resurrection. Number 1 is I do have nostalgia bias for it because this was the first Alien film that I ever saw when I was a kid. I think my dad rented it because it was the new Alien movie at the time, and I fell in love with it immediately. I fell in love with the creatures and the horror and the strangeness of it, and it's what made me want to see the other Alien films. Obviously, when I watched Alien and Aliens, I liked them better, but for me, it started with Alien Resurrection. The other thing I'll say about this movie is I consider Alien Resurrection to kind of be like the Jason X of the Alien franchise, where it's a stupid movie, and I will fully 100% admit that it's a stupid movie, okay? But I think it's incredibly fun. I enjoy watching it. I love the bombastic nature of it, the kinetic energy, and some of the crazy sequences, like the entire underwater sequence with the xenomorphs and then leading into that one area where all the eggs are, and you have Ron Perlman. Ron Perlman is so good in this movie. He is such a crazy motherfucker in this movie. I love it. I think because they use the Ripley clone, for me, it doesn't retroactively ruin Ripley's journey because this is Many times in the movie, they show you this is not Ripley. This is a clone that has been merged with the xenomorph DNA. It's an entirely new entity. So I don't think it ruins Ripley at all. And I consider the Ripley clone to be its own character. There are some moments in this movie that are just so batshit crazy that I just can't help but love them. Like when the guy has the xenomorph about to burst out of him and he grabs the dude's head and just is like, ah, just screams, and the xenomorph comes out of the dude's head. Some of the gore sequences, you got the newborn in there that just crushes Tuco's head. And as goofy as the newborn is, I do find it to be very sympathetic as a creature. I like the creature design, and its death scene is actually effectively traumatic. For many ways, you do kind of feel bad for it. Like, once again, I know Alien Resurrection is stupid, but I enjoy its absurdity. I enjoy how ridiculous it is. I watch it in a different way than I watch the original Alien or Prometheus or anything like that. I watch it in a way where I just purely want to be entertained by the insanity of the movie, and for that reason, I very, very much enjoy it. Now, when it comes to number 5 and number 4, this is where I had the biggest difficulty ranking these movies. And I'm going to tell you which two there are and what I ultimately decided on. So my number 5 and 4 is between Alien Covenant and Alien Romulus, because both of these movies I'm very mixed on. There's a lot that I love about them, and there's also a lot that annoyed me and irritated me about both of them. Ultimately, I am a big fan of Ridley Scott's kind of prequel movies. I love Prometheus. I love Alien Covenant. There are just things in Alien Covenant that bother me. One is, again, the crime of killing off a main character in between movies. Killing off Elizabeth Shaw in the way that they did is, to me, just as dark and just as morbid as the way that Alien 3 killed off its characters. But for some reason, it bothers me even more. And I don't like that the xenomorph is just pure CGI at the end of the movie. That also bothers me, as well as the cliffhanger that we have that will ultimately lead probably nowhere, because we're not going to get that third film. So Prometheus, I feel like, can really stand on its own as its own movie. Alien Covenant is absolutely a movie that needs a continuation. We need that third part. We need that finale, and we're not going to get it. So that brings the movie down for me. But there are things that I love about Alien Covenant. Some of the horror in the movie, I think, is just done so effectively well. The neomorphs, I think, are terrifying in their own way. The lengths that David has gone to experiment and create the entities that he has. I think the movie is filmed very well. Obviously, just like Prometheus, the cinematography is brilliant. Michael Fassbender's performance. There's so many things about Covenant that I enjoy, but there are things that bring it down for me. Now, I feel the same way about Alien Romulus. There are so many things that I love about it. I love the expansion on the lore once again. Oh, and I guess spoilers here for Romulus, because I kind of have to talk about it. So spoilers for Romulus if you haven't seen it. But there are things that I love about that movie too. Like, I love, again, the cinematography. I love the way it's filmed. I love the claustrophobic kind of horror atmosphere. I love bringing it back to its horror roots. I love the expansion on the lore, using the Prometheus goo and that creature at the end of the movie, which I thought was brilliant. Some people will hate it, but I loved it. That's the thing that pushed the movie up for me. I would have ranked it lower than Covenant. For sure, like absolute. But that last 10 minutes of Alien Romulus really, really boosted it up for me. People are going to feel any which way about that. But every Alien movie is controversial, It's like Alien 3, Resurrection, Prometheus, Covenant, Romulus. They're all controversial. They're all divisive. So whatever. It's in line with the whole series for me. But I think because of those reasons in Covenant, whereas I think Romulus, like Prometheus, can stand on its own. Like, you don't need a sequel to Romulus. It can be its own side story. So I think that at my number 5, I'm ultimately going to put Covenant. But I was very, very torn on this because I love Prometheus and Covenant, and I wasn't sure where I wanted to rank it. But as of right now, we'll see what time does to me as I reflect on the movies and as I rewatch them and where they go. But for me right now, my number 5 is going to be Covenant, and my number 4 is going to be Romulus. Coming in at my number 3 spot, and this is the point of the video that's going to piss everybody off, but I don't care. I've been singing this movie's praises since it came out. I really don't care what anybody else has to say. My number 3 is still Prometheus. I love this movie to death. I love the sci-fi epic storytelling that it gives us. I love the ideas that it implements about this ever-expanding universe that we're just never going to know all the answers of. I like the concept of the engineers and what it means to humanity. I love the themes of every creation eventually surpassing its creator. I love that whole conversation with David saying, why do they think they made AI? Because we could. Well, how would you feel if your creators felt the same way about you? And just David's ever-growing curiosity of him becoming darker and darker, because I don't see David as an outright evil character. I see him as a creator just the same way Wayland was. But it's like this never-ending drive to create and experiment and advance to the next thing. But then what happens when that next thing also becomes hyper-intelligent and maybe goes even further than you possibly could, or has attributes that are just incomparable to who you are as a person. I also think the movie is filled with great characters. I loved Elizabeth Shaw. I loved David. I loved Idris Elba's character. I can't remember his name, but I thought he was a badass as well. There's so many things I love about the movie, not to mention just the production design, the cinematography, the way the film looks. And I think with movies, it also always does come down to how it makes you feel. It's not just about the logistics of the movie and the lore. It's about what does the movie make you feel when you watch it. And for me, every time I watch Prometheus, I get a little bit inspired. It just inspires me when I watch it. It gets me curious about creation and the universe and the potential of what's out there and the potential of humanity and even the dark side of that. So when does that potential end? Is that the thing that makes us thrive is the same thing that invokes our downfall, as time goes on. So I love all the concepts. I love all the ideas. I love the characters. I love the sequences in the movie. I love the cinematography. I love everything about it. And I do think that a lot of the reasons people don't like Prometheus are just nitpicks. I really do, because people point out what I find to be some of the most insignificant things about the movie that in any other movie they would ignore. And in the Alien franchise, there's tons of moments that are just as ridiculous or just as dumb as some of the dumb moments that are in Prometheus. And I'm not denying that some of the moments are, a little bit contrived to get us to point A to point B. I'm not saying it's a perfect film, but the way people nitpick and tear apart Prometheus always seems so strange to me when you could do that with every other movie in the Alien franchise. So I'm going to defend Prometheus. I like the ideas, I like the concept, and I like the execution. For me, it's still my number 3. But I don't think it's any surprise that number 2 and number 1 are going to be Aliens and Alien, respectively. I would say Aliens obviously is a masterpiece of a film. It is one of James Cameron's best, in my opinion. It has a fantastic character arc of Ripley becoming this kind of paternal hero figure. It has a great cast of characters that are all memorable. I think it toes the line very well between horror and action. A lot of people say it's way more action-based, which is fair, but there is legitimately a lot of scary sequences in this movie. One thing that always freaked me out from when I was a little kid is when Hicks looks up into the grates above them and you see just the red light. You see the light go across the screen and the aliens all crawling like a hive. And this movie introduced a lot of those ideas, too, of them kind of building a hive and having a queen and all of that kind of stuff. It all comes from this film. But I think the thing that really pulls Aliens all together for me is the final sequence with the alien queen. I think that this scene, from the moment that Ripley goes to rescue Newt until the end of the movie, is some of the best sci-fi horror action to ever hit the screen that pretty much has never been topped. No matter what, the third act of a sci-fi adventure or a sci-fi action movie has never topped the third act of Aliens. And the fact that this was before CGI came into the picture, so you have this giant, puppet animatronic queen when it lifts its head up, and the lighting of the scene itself, you feel immersed because it's not in front of a green screen. You have the actual set there, you have the puppet queen, you have the lighting. When Bishop gets ripped in half, it always blows my fucking mind how good it looks. Even to this day, it looks amazing. And just iconic, dude. Iconic in every sense of the word. Aliens lives up to all of the hype that it is. and seriously, one of the best sequels ever made. Ultimately, though, my number one is the original Alien. I'm a horror guy when it comes down to it, and I love everything about this movie. It would also be in my top 10 favorite horror films of all time. I love the slow buildup. I love the questions that it asks. I love the claustrophobic nature of it. And just, now we have all this extra alien lore that I love. But if you just go by the first movie, the thing that makes it so terrifying is just the fact that we know nothing about it. It is alien. It's just this weird organic creature. And every time we discover something about it, it does something else, and we just are just incapable of keeping up with it and understanding what this thing is that we're dealing with. I like how the cast interacts with one another. They really feel like they're coworkers and have been for a long time. I like that Ripley is not specifically singled out as the main character, and that sort of happens organically throughout the film. So if you watched it for the first time and you didn't know who the main character was, I like that she kind of slowly becomes the main character. Again, the final act of this movie, when the ship is about to explode and the lights are going off and she's trying to escape. Also, Jonesy the cat, MVP, best character, only survivor of the original Alien film. Just saying. It's also another example of taking a very simple concept, like crew goes on to an alien world, alien comes aboard the ship, starts killing everybody. Been done before. Standard slasher plot if you just kind of like put it out into bullet points. But the way that it's filmed, the way that it looks, the immersion of the movie, and how Ridley Scott was able to execute the horror scenes just elevates it above anything else that's tried to do the similar concept of what this movie is. For me, the original Alien will always be a masterpiece, and if I'm going to watch any of these movies, my first choice will always be the original Alien. All right, guys, so that is my current ranking list of the entire Alien franchise, including Romulus. I'm sure I have some controversial picks in here and some things that you guys are going to disagree with, but that's okay. Disagreements are fine. Just don't be a dick about it. With that being said, I would love to hear your guys' ranking down below. I actually think one of the best things about the Alien franchise is how different everyone's opinions are. Like I said, some people love Alien 3, and that's just a movie that I just can't find myself enjoying no matter how many times I rewatch it. Tons of people hate Prometheus and hate Covenant, right? And now with Alien Romulus coming out, it is showing itself to be just as divisive as the rest of the franchise. I think the only thing people agree on is that Alien and Aliens are the best, and Alien vs. Predator Requiem is the worst. Everything else in the middle is just different for everybody, and I think that's awesome. I think that's one of the best things about movies, is that we all come at it with different opinions and different tastes and different subjectivity. So everyone's list is going to look different. So I want to know what your list is. So put yours down below, but this is mine. So thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it. Thanks for watching. I just said that already. Like the video, comment. If you want to support the channel on a deeper level, I have Patreon channel memberships turned on, as well as all the various social media links where you can follow me down below. Other than that, guys, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. I'll talk to you next time.